Okay, so we're going to work on our week 3 attendance, but in order to do that, there's something we need to make sure you've set up. So in your week 1 setup code environment, part of that step, and I'm just going to go ahead and click back into this, is that it had you set up 2 repositories, okay, repos on GitHub. And one was a private repo, and that's the one we've really been only using the whole, you know, beginning of the first week and the second week. And now into the third, we're actually going to use the public repo. So if for some reason you don't see a public repo formatted in the same kind of syntax, your first letter of your last name, dash, in this case, public, then you're going to want to have created that if for some reason you missed that step. Okay, so and again, you can watch these videos for how to create the repo itself. So how do you know? You would go over to CIT85, right? So GitHub CIT85, and then you would look. So for me, I've been using this demo private this whole time. And so I also have a demo public. So you want to make sure you have both of these. Okay, so that's the first thing. So now if for some reason when you also, as part of that assignment, I had you create a code space or you did a local install, okay? I generally recommend for students new, they do a code space. So if you created a code space, and I suspect you have, if you went that and you chose that option, then you've been using your code space on your public repo, or sorry, your private repo. That's bad for me to confuse them, so sorry. Okay, so if for some reason you didn't set up one on your public for the code space, you'll need to do that now as well. Okay, so you would go to public. This is just a reminder, right? So first, if you didn't create the public for some reason, repo, you'll need to do that. If you did do it, but you didn't create your code space, you'd come over to code, select code space, right? And then create a code space and then open it. Okay, so that's the 2 pieces, just as a reminder for what we're about to do. Now, at the end of that submission, or the way I had you submit this, which I'm guessing, this is why I'm guessing most of you have done this, but I'm just bringing it up in case you didn't, is actually walk you through how to create the URL that you'll be using when we do work that everyone can see. And we're about to do some of that work today. Okay. So in this case, if for some reason, again, if you don't have this, you're going to need this. And I realized for mine, so I thought, well, it doesn't hurt just to remind what that URL is. So I'm going to go to settings, right? I'm going to go down to pages. Again, you could review just to see if yours is here. I've selected main, and then I'm going to hit save. Okay, now this doesn't always show up immediately. I'm going to hit refresh and it's not yet. I'll come back a little bit later when we need it. But if you have that, then you could just go ahead and open it, okay, because you'll need it for the assignment. Okay, those are the 2 things you're going to need. So let's actually now move on. And by the way, if you don't have the repo, you don't have the code space, you need help, you can get help with that. Oh, yeah, and if you're using local like I am, then you would needed to have cloned that locally, okay? So again, in this code environment setup, there is how to clone things. Now for me, that's how I work. So I'm going to show you how my local environment looks. So I have a demo private, I have a demo public. Now I have a few others here. Don't try not to let that distract. For you, you should have, again, this is only for students using local setups, is 85SP26, and then they should have a public and a private. And if you don't have the public, now is the time to clone that repo to have it here. Okay. Now, the other thing is, whichever way, if you haven't, also the other thing you want to do is make sure you have that live server installed. Now, this is both for whichever environment you're in, code space or local. If you're actually local, you already have this, and the way you can tell is you go in and search for it, and so you can see if it's installed. The other way you can know this, and I'm going to come back here, is if you see go live at the bottom. Okay, so that gives you the setup. Make sure you have those pieces, because what we're about to do is going to require them. So you might be going, oh, wait a minute, how do I do this piece? Okay, so what are we going to do? So I'm actually going to bring up the instructions for what we're going to do this week. So what we're doing in the attendance this week is similar to what we did in week 3, is we're getting some things ready. And we're adding some additional requirements for our project that are not covered in Kevin's code along. Okay, one is that we're going to actually use a validator, and the other one is we're going to generate images to where Kevin gave us the images he wanted us to use. Okay, so in this case, we're going to be working on that public repo, right? And we're going to create a folder, and I'll walk you through that in a second. Okay, matter of fact, let's just do that now before we even get started. So I'm going to move back over here. So I've already created mine, but just as a review, once you click on your repo, you're at the what we call the root of your repo. Okay, you would create a folder. Okay, and so in this case, the folder you're going to create is W3. So you can see how that is right underneath. Okay, so that's a folder. And remember, this is really important before you do it, is to know where you're clicked and which you're creating. So you're first creating a folder, right? And then if I click in W3, then I'm going to create another folder, and that's going to be called IMG for images that you'll use in just a second. Okay. And then so now we're going to create a file. So now again, it's important to understand where you're located. So I'm going to hit, file. I'm going to call it index.html. Now I'll show you how to get this in a minute, but so that's the setup that you want to do. Okay. So you'll see this as we move through, because we're not actually there yet before we get to the place to need that setup. So I'm just giving you some of that before we get there. What you're going to use is whatever Gen AI, right? So Chat GPT has a Dolly, actually has this built in now, Gemini, Midjourney, Adobe, whichever one you want. I happen to be using Gemini. And so I had Gemini create an image for me, and then I downloaded it. Okay. So the images you're going to create for this attendance are just playing around, but you're actually going to end up creating images for the project step. But for this step, you're just going to create something so that you can play around. Now, what's important to understand about when you create images like this is that generally, and again, these might be different, but when you download them, this is a really large file. Okay, so I'm going to show you in the next step how to actually take these images and make them more optimized in both size, meaning the pixels across and pixels down, and also the size of the file. These are really two important things when we're doing web development. So, but first, get your image and download it. Now, what's important to understand is where for you on your system does that downloaded file go? And this is why, when you're downloading things, and I'm just going to do it again. And again, this is Gemini, but your Chat GPT, I think, will work very similar, or wherever you're doing it. It might take a second because these files are really large, and it could take a moment. Now, I've already done, now see, for me, they show up as being downloaded out of my browser, tells me, oh, they're here. And then I could just click on Show Finder because I'm on a Mac, but this will be true for a PC or whatever. Okay, so first get your image, right? So you can see I've downloaded it twice. Now here's what I was talking about. See, this is 7.8 megabytes. This is large, right? This is a large file, bigger than we need for the web. And the other thing is like a resolution. I'm going to show you on the next step here, because what we're going to do is optimize these images. So we're going to go to an app I've been using called Squish. And if you go to that app, and I'm just going to right click, open it in a new tab here, this thing is so cool because it's just so easy to use. Now I'm going to bring back my Finder, and this is where, whichever way you're using File Manager on Windows, and I'm just going to drag that image into here. Now you can use whatever you want. If you have something built in locally, you're welcome to use that. But look at this. See, this is a beautiful image. It should be for the size it is, 7.7 megabytes. So I'm going to hit resize, and I'm going to see that it is really, really big. Okay, so for our purposes, for what we want you to do, and this is in the assignment, we want you to change it to around 800 pixels. And when you change the width, it automatically changes the length. Okay, so, and there's ways to do it without doing that, but for the most part, we don't. So I'm going to put 800 here. Now, you'll need to figure out for your app, if you're not using this one, how to actually, in this case, resize. Okay. The other thing is down here on compression. Now, by the way, once I do that, you can already start to see over here. It might be a little hard to see, but it's 56.1 kilobytes. That's much smaller in physical size, but also the resolution is smaller. I accidentally put 808. So now the other thing is how we compress it. So I'm going to come down here. Now for me, I like to use WebP. You can also, if you want, use JPEG, because in this case, are images. And part of the prompt is actually having you do a realistic image, but you'll end up doing for your project later, but just play around so that you know how to do it by the time you get to the project. So it can either be WebP, or it could be PNG, whichever you want. Now at this point, you're actually ready to actually download. Okay, now when you download here, and I'm going to go ahead and click it, right? So now I have a third download in here, but I can already tell just by looking at my little toasts, we call them here, is that it is 45 kilobits. Okay, much smaller than 7.4 megabits. And we could talk about what that means, but here's what you can just know: it's much smaller. Okay, so let me come back here. All right, so we did that. We compressed it, right? And look at this, way under 100, right? And so now when we downloaded it, boom, you're ready to go. So now what you want to do is rename that to whatever file, whatever for you that file represents as far as a name, and whatever extension you have. And then you're going to place it in your W3 images. Oh, it should IMG. I'll fix that in a second, right? You'll drag it into there and then you'll do a commit. Okay, so here's what I would suggest. I would suggest trying this on your own. Hit pause and try it on your own, and then I will actually come back you can come back and watch me do it. But try it on your own, because this is a good time to really try things. Okay, so for me, on mine, I want to make sure, I'm looking at the right image. Okay, so I'm going to click on it, and I could click on it once and it'll actually, and it opens it up for me to rename. And again, this is specific to whatever operating system. I can also right click and hit rename. So I'm going to say plant-based food. Okay. Okay. Planet. It's okay with me. Okay, and WMP. Okay, so now that I have that, now I'm going to open my local system. Okay, again, I'll fix the instruction to where by the time you get there, you will have an images folder. So now what I'm going to do, now if you're on CodeSpace, you do a similar thing where you just drag it in. So let me show you. I'm going to bring back my Explorer. Again, for me, it's called the Finder. For Windows, it's called the Explorer. I'm just going to drag it. Now, what's important is to know where that image is being dragged into. Okay, cool. Right, so now I can see it, and I can see the resolution, and I can see the file size, which is awesome. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and close this. Okay, so now let's go look at the instruction. Okay, so now that you have that, you need to have a commit. So this is where you would do attendance, optimize images. So again, right, try this on your own, and maybe you already did and you're back just to see me do it. So what I do, terminal, right, new terminal. Now when you're working locally, this is where if I tried to do git commands here, like if I did git status, that wouldn't actually work. Okay, and I could have shown you just how to open the pub repo, the folder by itself. But, I also know that some of you may be working like this, so I thought I'd leave it for now. So what I need to do is change directory. I'm going to call it demo-private. Now, the other way you can do that is right-click, open an integrated terminal. Okay, so that's the other way you can do that. And so now I'm going to do a clear, just so there's nothing on the screen. I'm going to do pwd, and I'm like, okay, I'm in that folder. I go W3. Now I actually don't have to do the following steps, but it's just good practice. Change directory, W3, change directory, IMG. Cool. And now I can do get status. So what it's showing me here is that I have untracked files. So that's what these use mean, right? Use mean untracked. So get add star, okay, get commit -m. Now I had already grabbed that commit message, so I'm good to go there. Okay, now I don't have to do git push yet, okay, because I'm not ready to publish out there. Okay, which by the way, while we're kind of moving on to the next step, before we do that, I'm going to go back over to my pages. I'm going to hit refresh. And again, you may have already done this. Oh, cool. All right. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and open up that site. And now the only thing it's going to show me is my README, what's in here, okay? Because I haven't pushed all these changes I've done out here yet. And we'll show you how to do that in the end. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to load another extension. And this extension is really a good one because one of the things Kevin doesn't do that you really want to learn how to do is actually how to make sure you're writing valid HTML. And Kevin is actually writing some of HTML that actually isn't quite valid. And that's because he's targeting that video to beginners. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you. And again, if you're on CodeSpace, doesn't matter if you're local, this is the same way. You come into extensions, and now I'm going to get rid of that. I'm just going to paste W3 validator, and notice how I show you actually which one by the creator, okay? So in this case, I already have it, so you want to go ahead and install it, okay? And you'll need that for the next step, and I'll show you in a minute how it works. So once you have that installed, okay, I'm going to come back here. I'm going to go back to my Explorer inside of VS Code. And now, and this is where I had created the file. Okay, so if I roll up images, IMG, I can see, and it might be a little hard to see this from the organization here, but within that W3 folder, now this is W3 meaning week 3, not the W3C that we just did. But in here isn't a folder, and inside of this folder is actually an index file. Okay, so now what you're going to do is we're actually going to create some broken code. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to take this prompt, this entire prompt, you can do it without the quotes, and take it over to whatever Gen AI system you use, or any site, whichever it is. You know I use Gemini, so that's what I do. Okay, so I think I have this down here. So then you're going to paste it. So while you're listening to me, you could actually go in there. There it is. So I just pasted that right in, and it actually spit out some HTML for me. And I copied that, and then I pasted it into here. Okay, so take a moment there, pause, go get that code. Again, ours will look different, right? And then we'll look at the instructions. So go get that, paste it in, okay? So this is where I'd already created the file. You created it now, which is totally cool. And then you're going to do another commit called attendance broken code. Okay, so I'm going to let you pause. Actually, I'm going to let you go do this here. You can pause now and go do it. I will do it as well, but I'm not going to walk through it because I want you to get used to this process. Okay. All right, so now here comes your challenge, right? So this is the challenge for you for this attendance post, is actually now to go view it in live server. Okay, so let's do that. So I have this, and I'm going to go down to live server. Now there's a lot on my screen, so maybe it gets a little busy. I'll clear this up. Maybe I'll make this a little smaller, okay? Then I'll come down here and I'll hit go live. Cool. So I can see I got a broken image. I got a lot of content, and it's a big text here, right? So now I'm going to go back to my code space or local, right? And now while I have this open, I'm going to look for at the bottom that W3C validator, okay? And I'm going to click that, and it's going to give me, we've been working this whole time in terminal, so now you want to go over to problems, right? So now your task right now is to actually fix these problems, okay? This is actually great experience, is knowing how to fix the problems that you have, Okay, so this is where I want you to now, let's go back here, right? So now observe, right? Look for the squiggly. Oh, actually, I need to add a step here where you actually run the W3C validator. I'm glad I saw that. So I'll add that step in here to make sure you have it. So this tells you basically how to fix these things, right? So again, pause here. I'm going to pause the video and fix them on my own. I want you to fix yours on your own, right? And then there'll be one more fix that we'll do afterwards. Okay, so I went through and fixed my stuff that was in error. Most of it was like the H1 I needed to close. I needed to put a / here. I need to add doc type at the top. And now you're going to do another commit. So if you're on the problems tab, you should actually have at this point, let's go ahead and try it again. Now we still have an issue here. Okay, so let's actually see if that was, yeah, actually needed to fix that as well. Okay, so alt description needed to be added to image. Okay, let me see if that was the only thing I had. And lang, let me get rid of this, needed to be added. Oh yes, right. So let's actually see if we had that in there. Okay, so now in this case, you may have had some things that showed up that didn't, that weren't on the fix list. So now you get to actually go fix those things based on the instruction. Now, if you have a problem with this, this is where you can go play a little bit, you know, ask AI to help you with this. But I happen to know, right? Beautiful food. I'm going to say beautiful food here. The other one it said was consider adding a lang. So this would be, right? So this is actually telling me, notice how my editor is actually telling me how to, what the issue is that I need to add lang in here. Okay. So I would come down here, and I think it's in here. Lang is English. Let's see if that fixed it. Okay. So now I'm going to test again. Uh-oh. Now what do I have? Trailing. Do I need a space there? Yep, I did. I needed a space there. Okay, so let's see if I have it all good. It's like my editor. Oh, yeah. So actually, this is a broken image. Ah, this was the other thing we needed to fix. Okay, so actually, I didn't fix this, so this is good to remember. Oh, and I should have. Again, you may have different errors, right? We'll actually look at this in a minute. Now, I'm going to pause and fix my image. Okay, so actually I realized on the image tag, that's a self-closing tag. I didn't actually need to place that trailing one. And then for my image, my IMJ, okay, so I referenced my folder, okay, and then and this is a nice thing about VS Code too, is when you start typing in this case, you do not want to start with a /. No, 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 you want to go M, okay, and then it'll actually prompt you to say, hey, is that the name of the file? And you go, yeah. Okay, cool so far, right? So let's again, see if I got a clean bill of health, and I do. Okay, so again, I would do now, right? I would do another commit here that you fix those issues. Okay, so now the last thing is that now that our code, now don't forget, right? I kind of rushed over it. Don't forget to go back to terminal, right? And now you can do here, right? I do get status, and I go like, yep, I got to do my commits here. So again, I'm training you, like when I say go do your commits, that's what you would use. So the last thing we're going to do is actually this. Oh, by the way, let's look at the output. That's what I didn't do, right? So here is remember I hit go live. I'm going to drag this over to here so I have it. I'm going to close this because I no longer need it. And now I'm going to hit refresh. And this is looking much better than it was before. My image is showing up, and this is what you want to make sure of, is that your image is actually showing up. Okay? Okay, cool. So the last thing is but let's make it semantic. This is so important, right? So find where your div. Now we've been introduced to divs. We have an ID of home here. Okay. And then we're going to change this div to a nav. Now this is something we haven't been, I think we've talked about it, but we haven't done it for the class. Okay, so let's actually change the divs in this case to navs, because this code right here is navigation. And this will be something we'll end up doing for our project as well. So I'm going to do nav, and then I'm going to come down here, I'm going to do nav. Now, this semantic error is not showing up in our W3 school. It's really just what we want to make sure is we're using semantic tags. So where it had a div, and really we have a tag for our navigation for our site. And you're going to want to do this because you're going to do this for your project. Yep, we've done that. So now you have another commit here, okay? So fix that and have your another commit, and you're almost ready to actually go see your work, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here, and now I'm going to pause. I'm going to do all my commits. I'm going to get caught up, and then I'm going to do a git push, and I want you to do the same. So first, fix all those things. Make sure your output looks good. And when you do that, then do your git status, your git add, your git commit, and then do your git push. Okay, so I'm going to do everything up to the push, and I'll be right back. Okay, cool. So now I'm good. So if I did a git status, right, I actually have, but here I have I'm ahead. So my branch is ahead. So what this means, and this is what I want to show you, because I'm going to go back now to the GitHub interface, right? Remember how, let's go actually back to here. So right now I've done my version control, I've done my git status, I've done my git add, my git commit, but I haven't done the git push. And how I know that by looking here is if I hit a refresh, that W3 folder and associated content's not here. Okay, so that's one thing, right? So I'm going to go ahead now. I'm going to do git push. And when I do that, now I'm going to go back to that GitHub interface. Okay, I'm going to hit refresh, and what I should see is my W3. I should see that images folder, IMJ folder, and my index file. Okay, so cool. I have this part now. But what you're going to end up sharing, okay, so first make sure that's there, and you can actually go into your images folder, look at your file to make sure that's there. Cool, make sure everything's good. And now you're actually going to I'm going to show you how to share it. Okay, so this is the submission. We're getting ready to submit. So now go is what I just showed you, right, to your GitHub, your CIT85 GitHub IO, your repo. Go to your week 3 and see if your image is there first. Do that, okay? Because if you don't do that, what we're about to do won't work, okay? And we don't want that. But, you know, there's always ways to troubleshoot it. So now I'm going to return to what I showed you to start with, which is this URL that we had. If you had already set it up in week 1, cool. If you only had to remind yourself that it's here now, cool. But what would we need to change here to actually see our work rendered as a web page? Because you might think, well, I'll just give this URL. And the answer is no, because when we're sharing with each other and when we're actually creating websites, we want to share the URL that actually renders a website. This is just showing us the files. This URL, right? Let me go back because I know I've gone back and forth a lot. Okay, this is when it goes CIT85 github.io and then your dash public. That is looking at that. So now we just have to do W3, hit enter, and it should show up. Okay, now there can sometimes be a lag here, so if you don't see it right away, this is why I showed you the other way of looking at it on GitHub, so you make sure everything's there. Okay, make sure any changes you've done to your index file, oh, yep, that's all there. Okay, so because this is the URL, okay, you're going to copy, go into your attendance, right? Okay, so we already did all this. This is a little bit of a summary, right? So what are you going to do? So first you're going to hit reply. You're going to paste that URL, whatever that was. Okay, and watch this. This is really cool. When you hit enter in Canvas, it actually creates this as a link, which is awesome. Okay, so what you're going to do is, besides posting your URL, right? Now remember, I grade on your commits. That's why, but when we're doing work like this, you don't have to give me your commits because I go look at them. What you really are doing is sharing with everybody in the class, here's the results of the work that I've done. Okay. So you're going to post a comment after this, right? You're regarding the experience of doing this work, right? Any of the experiences of any of the part of it. So you do a little bit of writing here. Okay. So this is a really good assignment to set us up for future sharing that we'll be doing. And let's just go back here and see if there was any. Nope. This is the last step that you have on there. Okay. So this shows you how I grade it. I look at, did you create, oh, I'll fix this, good as well. I'll make sure to fix that in there to be IMG, because IMG is kind of the standard I use. Some people use images, but let's just agree upon using that, right? We create the index, you both in your commits, you actually committed the broken code, then you went through and fixed it, your optimized images. So I will grade on all those things and then make sure you've posted the URL and done some writing. Okay, hope this was a fun assignment. Next, it's time to move on to your code along.